In my mind, I'm no different than I was when I was 19, 20 years old. I still like all the same things. I like rap music. I like cars. I like girls. I like boobs. I like fart jokes. How did it come to pass that I'm now this person that hears their alarm go off at 6:45 in the morning and lives for Friday? At what stage in the game did this transpire in my life? I feel the same, but somehow this is not necessarily the box I imagined I'd be fitting my stuff into. The box I imagined I fit my stuff into. It sounds dirty, but it's not. You get what I'm saying, right? But then, look, we make our way in the world. We live, thrive, and survive. We figure out what it takes to get where we're going. We develop relationships. We find out that some people matter to us a lot. Sneaks up on you sometimes. Whether it's that person you've been dating for a little bit, maybe it's someone you weren't expecting to meet. Maybe it's your friend. Maybe it's your coworker. Maybe you look at someone one day and go, wow, this is a really valuable person in my life. You've all had that, right? You've had that. I remember in high school, you kind of like realize, hey, this person's been my friend for a really long time. I can't imagine what life would have been like without him. And you might think that about whoever the hell it is you're dating, or who you're married to, or your kids. I mean, the kids have the whole release of oxytocin when they're born, and your chemical makeup goes crazy, and you sort of like are filled with overwhelming love for them 9 times out of 10. That's what I understand about parenting. So that's a little different with kids. I think with kids, you instantly know. I think the thing that makes me realize how valuable relationships can be, dogs. My dog Mabel. My dog Mabel was a rescue, and my Cocker Spaniel buddy had passed away, and I couldn't imagine replacing him. But he had a little brother, my Maltese Homer, and Homer was just devastated when the Cocker Spaniel buddy passed away, and he needed a companion. And I tried to go get a dog anywhere I could. I tried pet stores. I tried adoption places. And it was just too much for me. I would leave in tears because Bud, the Cocker Spaniel, he was the light of my life. And this is a great thing about dogs. I think they teach you how to love. I think they teach you about love. And when they leave, it doesn't make it any easier, but they're teaching you about loss. Even when they're not there, they're making us stronger, better people. But I needed to get a dog. I needed to get a companion for Homer. And I got an email with this abused little mutt that had been left alone for 2 weeks. Hair so matted, she couldn't open her mouth. And I was like, you know what? This one chose me. And I need a dog that's a companion for my puppy Homer because he's in mourning. So I get this dog, Mabel. Bring her home. And she's great. Makes the other dog happier, and it's a wonderful dog. But really felt like this little dog just living in my house. And I couldn't tell you at what point she stopped being this dog that was living in my house and became a part of my life and became a part of my family. But that stuff sneaks up on you, doesn't it? In the same way that this 9-to-5 life you wind up leading as an adult sneaks up on you. And while the 9-to-5 life might not be what you imagined for yourself, it might not be the trail you imagined blazing when you started off, when you started making your way in this world, when you were a punk-ass kid that was going to set the world on fire and everyone would know your name. While this 9-to-5 life where you wake up at 6:45 in the morning and you live for Friday at 5 p.m., that might not be what you imagined for yourself. Every time it beats you down, every time you go, what the hell am I doing with my life? I would imagine the relationships that snuck up on you. All of a sudden you have a significant other. All of a sudden you have someone that you care about the most. All of a sudden you have kids. All of a sudden you have, maybe it is your dogs that look up to you, that are a part of your life, are a part of the fabric of your life, and you cannot possibly imagine where you would be without them. Think about that. Think about the value those things that snuck up on you give you. The things, the people, the relationships that matter the most, the people you care about the most, the people that care about you the most. Give that some consideration. Think about what all that means. And I guarantee that waking up at 6 in the morning, punching a clock, and getting out at 5 on a Friday will suddenly make a whole lot more sense.
Understand. What do I do? What do I do? Rock the radio, 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 with D on your radio, your radio, your radio. Shimmy, shimmy, ah, shimmy, shimmy, AD on your radio like every day. I'm totally all city champion from the north back to the south, and even your mama loves it when I open my mouth. And I love it when your mama opens her mouth too. You see what I did there? Yeah, it's kind of sort of just what I do. You'll be all like, what the hell? What did AD just say? I'm not sure if I'm offended or if he just made my day. A little insane in the brain, but I'm always entertaining. Remain in the game, I'm maintaining and gaining. My ratings soaring, my competition's boring. They play by the rules that I'm always ignoring. I'm raw, I'll bring it to you straight hardcore, and I really want some more. So turn it up loud, cause you know you love the sound when I rock the radio, 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 with D on your radio, your radio, your radio. My dear, I do not know you, but you know me very well because you hear me every single day that you're alive. I'm the voice in your head from the time that you wake up to the car, to the bed, from the FM to the AM to the XM. I get it done any day, every day. You can find me here at number one. Did I say that I'm number one? I'm sorry, I lied. I'm number one, bits 2, 3, 4, and 5 on your TV, on your radio, on your stereo, everywhere you go. There I am, you know, and you know you can rely on me to be giving you what you need. I'm raw, I'll bring it to you straight hardcore, and I'll leave you want some more. So turn it up loud, cause you know you love the sound when I rock the radio, 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 with D on your radio, your radio, your radio. Cause you know you love the sound. Turn it up loud, cause you know you love the sound. Turn it up loud, cause you know you love the sound. Turn it up loud, cause you know you love the sound. Get it? Turn it up loud, cause you know you love the sound. Turn it up loud, cause you know you love the sound. Turn it up loud, cause you know you love the sound. Turn it up loud, cause you know you love the sound. When I rock the radio, 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 with D on the radio, the radio, the radio. Rock the radio, 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 with D on the radio, the radio, the radio. Your radio, your radio.
You mean you're the Mike and the Mechanics? They don't tie it in all the time, so in a way this documentary, I think, helps do that.
Keep listening to iHeartRadio for more Mike Rutherford and all your favorite artists.
This is the 80s Show on iHeartRadio.
Say ho, ho, say ho, 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 let's start the show, let's start the show. Come on, let's go, come on, let's go. Say ho, ho, say ho, whoa, ho, whoa. Let's start the show, let's start the show, let's start the show, let's start the show.
So, growing up in England, there was this guy. He was sort of a journalist, I suppose, that wound up on television. A guy called Clive James. And if you dig around the interwebs and look for Clive James on television, I'm sure there's tons of stuff up on YouTube, you're going to find some examples of this guy's work. And essentially, without him, things like Tosh.0, every sort of like clip-oriented green screen show that goes on now wouldn't have existed. It was a precursor to that, where he would find sort of, and bear in mind this is England, where you can't show violence on TV, but you can show all the boobs you want. And his show was basically made up of strange clips from Japanese video games. There was a Japanese game shows. There was a Japanese game show back in the day called Endurance, which was, I don't know if it's still going, but remarkably politically incorrect. And strange and wonderful in a way that is unique to Japan, I think. But he would show clips from this incredible Japanese game show called Endurance, which was exactly what it sounded like. They'd put a bunch of Japanese contestants in weird positions and see who could last the longest. I remember the Clive James on Television show introduced me at a very young age to the fact that people were really effing weird, mostly through that show Endurance. There was one, and it was this global game show. Look it up. It's fantastic. It was this global game show. And they would travel around the world putting these hapless Japanese contestants through all sorts of, well, in some instances of torture. Like I remember there was one where I believe they were in Egypt, somewhere in some Middle Eastern desert. And the Japanese contestants, in the blazing heat of the desert, were tied. They weren't actually crucified, but they were tied to crosses, which is, of course, completely sacrilegious in the first place. And then when these guys were tied to crosses, gleeful Bedouin tribespeople would burn their nipples with magnifying glasses. It's true. It's called Endurance. It was on a show called Clive James on Television in England in the 80s and 90s. Look it up. It's fantastic. I was way too young to be watching it, but yeah, whatever. My parents were cool about that stuff. And it was, like I said, an absolute precursor to shows like Tosh.0. Completely irreverent, completely ridiculous, but very amusing. And helming the entire thing was this Australian journalist who'd come to England and made a name for himself as sort of a respected newspaper guy. And the show was obviously a departure from anything that was respected, but he was this, I don't know, he was a super unbelievably out there dude in terms of what he presented, but did it in a very educated, well put together way. And I really admired him from an early age, admired his writing, admired how he put himself across, admired the fact that he could be this respectable guy doing ridiculous things. I thought it was cool. And really kind of fell in love with what he did. It shaped a lot of my sensibilities as a child. Seeing Japanese people tied to a cross in the middle of the desert and watching Bedouin tribes people burn their nipples with magnifying glasses resonated with me at an early age and shaped a lot of what I imagine you hear today. But what's interesting about Clive James is, well, he's Australian. But now, in his advanced years, he wasn't young when he was doing the show. He can't go back to his native Australia. And he's got some sort of medical condition which doesn't allow him to travel long distances. And when you live in England, Australia is an awfully long way away. And he's had to make his peace with things like the fact that he'll never see his beloved Sydney Harbour ever again for the remainder of his life. And he was always an excellent writer, but of late he's taken to writing books of poetry. And these books of poetry, in a lot of instances, and I'm not into poetry in general, but because he's talking about his life in them, and because he's a guy I'm very interested in, I've read a bunch of his poems. And what's interesting about his poems is they are him sort of coming to terms with his mortality, him coming to terms with the end of his life, coming to terms with the fact that there's other people in Australia, beloved relatives that, similarly can't travel. He can't travel. So he knows some of these people he's never going to see ever again. He knows that he'll never see his beloved Sydney Harbour ever again. He's recognized a lot of things that are changing as the clock counts down his remaining days. Reading his poems had the same effect on me as, did you ever hear that record that Warren Zevon was making? He was almost racing against the clock. He found out he had terminal cancer, and his final statement that he wanted to make to the world.